We are born free.
And we will die free.
The time in between, though,
that's complicated.
In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
What is up, everybody? It is Monday, almost Monday afternoon on the East Coast here. Glad to be with you. Kind of a rare Monday show here. A couple different things, a couple reasons for this. I guess I should put it that way. The primary reason was this past weekend. I was up in State College, Pennsylvania, to watch the Penn State game as they took on the mighty Bowling Green. I don't know what their mascot is, but Penn State barely beat Bowling Green, but it was still a fun weekend. Got to do some tailgating, but woke up very early for that. It was a noon game, and then drove back on Sunday. My wife and I woke up very early to get back in time to serve at our church. We serve in the children's ministry, watching the 2-year-olds. So I was exhausted yesterday, didn't get sleep, went right into serving at church, and I wasn't gonna record this last night, and I had planned a solo show. So I figured, you know what, the second part of this is I'm, I guess, unemployed, self-employed, an entrepreneur, so I can record anytime I want to. And I've become a little more flexible over the years with regards to what I believe in the cadence of publishing podcast episodes. I used to believe that to have a successful podcast, you have to publish the exact same time on the same day of the week in order to your audience gets used to that, and it pops up in their feed. They're expecting it. I still do think that's important to a point, but I think after you've established a long track record, especially of podcasting, like I have and Brian has, I think you can get a little more wiggle room and play in when you publish your podcast. And you look at, some of the most successful podcasts out there don't have a set day or even time that they publish on. And some of that comes with the celebrity of some of these podcasters. Some of that comes with just the size of the audience that they command. Doesn't matter when they publish. But I have kind of changed the way I think about it. I think there's a little bit more leniency in when you can publish a podcast. So this one will be out, obviously, on the podcast feed on all the podcasting platforms later today. Broadcasting this live, though, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. Twitter, my account now has that little check mark next to it, so I can now live stream to Twitter. So that's fantastic. Of course, we've been live streaming to Twitter with our Lions of Liberty account for a long time. So be sure to follow Lions of Liberty on Twitter. Follow John Odermatt on Twitter. If you like YouTube, do the same there. And so let's get into it. Also, I do want to say this first before I get into the topics for today. Those of you who have been listening to my solo Finding Freedom feed, I have been producing another episode on not a regular cadence with no regularity, called Pursuit of Freedom, where I talk about what I'm doing now that I've left corporate America and I'm pursuing entrepreneurship. Last week was the first week I didn't publish an episode. I want to get 2 in this week, so be sure to subscribe to Finding Freedom with John Odermatt to get those episodes. They will not be in the Lions of Liberty network feed. So Lions of Liberty network feed is just my show, Finding Freedom, and Brian McWilliams with Mean Age Daydream. And on Fridays, you'll also get some meme wars as well. But To get into really what I want to talk about today on entrepreneurship, I did want to give a little quick update on one thing that I am pursuing and an experience I had this weekend in State College, which makes me even more excited about this avenue of entrepreneurship that I am pursuing. I want to talk about auditing your time. And I think this is really important for entrepreneurs, really important for people who work in a corporate job, own a business, whatever, working for someone else, working for yourself. Auditing your time, for me, has been a game changer, and you really start to see how much time you waste. Then I want to get into a little Elon Musk, a really cool tweet that he had recently, which really, I think really highlights what this election is all about. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some of Kamala Harris's policies that she rolled out. Not going to go through all of them. I just want to hit 4 or 5, talk about the good. Yes, there's some good things in there, and the bad, that a lot of bad that came out with Kamala Harris's policy rollout. So first, to go back to this weekend. So like I said, I was at Penn State with my wife watching the Penn State game. We do tailgate. So to tailgate, you need ice, right? And if you know me, you know a big fascination for me recently has been not even fascination. It's been what I've been putting a lot of my time into to start to build this business, is figuring out, researching where I want to place an ice vending machine. And I started out in August when I first started seriously looking into this, looking at much smaller machines. I started to realize if you want to have a real impact and make real income, you have to have a much larger machine, because you need to be able to maximize your ice buying seasons. Where you're getting the most ice bought in the Northeast anywhere is going to be in the summer from May to October. And you don't want a smaller ice machine that's going to be running out during those times, limiting your revenue and ultimately limiting how much profit you can bring in. So one thing I've really been focusing on is whenever I buy ice, I'm really looking at the price, I'm looking at the size of the bags of ice, and putting it up against the pro forma, the structure that I will put in place when I put up my own ice vending machine on the pricing there. And up at Penn State, typically ice is cheaper than it is in Pittsburgh. So I'm going to have to check out what I discovered in State College this weekend with local Pittsburgh ice pricing. Maybe there's been a big shift recently that I didn't notice, but I paid, and I'll say this first. So normally when I'm in State College, I go to Sheets for my ice. You go to Sheets because you can get coffee there. You pick up your ice. It's pretty easy. In and out. Sheets recently shifted, I think within the past year or so, from having little 10-pound bags of ice to now I've seen both 8 and 7. So maybe they're experimenting at different locations. The ones I saw at this place in State College were, I believe, 8-pound bags of ice. And they have the 20-pound bag ice, of course, which with a big cooler, icing down food, icing down drinks, I need the 20-pound bag of ice. I've never seen this price before this high. It was $7.50 for a 20-pound bag of ice, which is insanity. That's complete insanity. And just to put it in perspective, the pricing that I'm looking at when I have my ice machine will be, I was previously looking at like $3.50 for a 20-pound bagged or bulk right into the cooler. I think I'm going to be much higher than that. And as I raise that price, that all goes into profit, man, because the costs are fixed with an ice vending machine. Electric, you got your rent, leasing out what you're paying per month, your water, insurance. There's not a lot of costs where you have a lot of variable costs with the old, ice method, where they're really influenced by fuel costs and that overhead. As fuel changes, as shipping costs go up, that's going to really impact the pricing of their ice, and they have to store it as well. So you can really undercut a lot of those the old ice infrastructure, the way ice is sold today, and will continue to be sold until the model changes, which I believe will happen in the next 10 years here. We're going to see a lot more ice vending machines because it just makes sense to make your ice on the spot. You cut out all the variable costs with fuel costs. So I thought that was really, really fascinating. And I think that is really telling for how hot prices are in the economy. We keep hearing that inflation is, well, they say coming down, but they say the rate is lowering more to a, more normalized level, 2 to 3% per month. I still really don't believe that. Inflation is different in different sectors. Maybe it's hitting, the ICE market now more so than other places. But yeah, I just don't buy that. I mean, yes, I do buy that the inflation rate has come down. I do buy that. But what I don't buy is there's still definitely different areas in the market where the rate is still, I think, up at 6 to 8% month over month, which is just crazy, and not a good thing considering the Fed is going to be reducing rates and turning the printing press back on. So hold on to your hats. I don't even know why I use that saying there. Maybe because I'm wearing a hat, but hold on to your hats indeed. So before I get to the economy, before I get to Elon's tweet, just wanted to talk about auditing your time. I'm someone who, when I did work a corporate job, obviously I think you have to be in today's age very reliant upon a schedule. But even so, with that schedule and with all the distractions today, you kind of lose, you can easily lose track of your time. You can get sidetracked working on something you didn't even plan on. You can get sidetracked doing something that's not even adding value to your job, or if you're working for yourself, to your business. And what I started doing this past week, and I forget where I saw this, but it's so simple, is you just write down everything you do throughout a day. Of course, you have a schedule of things you're planning on doing, but then your audit is, literally everything you did. If you spent a half hour just staring at your phone, write that down. Half hour staring at my phone. And when you start to do stuff like that and audit your time, it's crazy. Like the one day you added up, it was like 2.5 hours where I just wasted time. And it's nuts. And it's fine to I think, to plan parts of your day where, sure, you're going to waste time. Maybe you're going to sit on the couch and watch TV, look at your phone, whatever. It's good to plan things like that. It's good to plan time with your family, right? And things like that. And as I've gotten more aware of how I'm spending my time, I'm getting more aware of how I want to plan my time, ahead of time, setting time away, to practice softball with my daughter, or, what I've talked about before on Pursuit of Freedom is with all this free time I have now, right? Since I'm, not tied down to a 9-to-5 job, is finding the times with my family, when we can get together and plan out our week. We can plan, a time during each day when we get together to do, some Bible devotionals, to do some Bible study together. So it's been huge for me to really start taking my time a lot more seriously. And I think in today's day and age, most people don't take their time serious enough. I think there's been this badge of honor, especially in the corporate world, where seeming busy, and when you talk to people before meetings, after meetings, when you're talking casually on the phone, if you're in the office, at the water cooler, at the coffee pot or whatever, saying, I'm just so busy. It's like a badge of honor with being busy. But in reality, being busy, when you're saying that, I'm just so busy, I have so much to do, what you're conveying is my life is totally out of control. I have no control over my time. I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. And that's become respected, like having no control of your time, which is crazy. So hopefully you take something away from that little rant there on time management. Maybe you weren't expecting that today, but it's something that I've really been reflecting on quite a bit and thinking about, because we don't get any more time. The time that we have in each day, it's what we have. Eventually we're going to die. It is really our most valuable resource. And I think learning how to manage your time is probably the most important thing that you can do. So by watching this podcast, hopefully you're getting something out of the time you're putting in to listening to this, or maybe you're, doing some multitasking and working as you watch and listen to this. But whatever you're doing, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And let's get into a tweet that I saw recently from Elon Musk, which I think sets up, the rest of this conversation rather well. So, got a picture of Yoda here, and this is, like I said, a quote tweet from Elon. That's a direct quote from Master Yoda, and it says, "The real job before us is not cleaning up the mess that Biden created. The real job is cleaning up the mess that created Biden." Brain exploding, right? I mean, people who listen to this show, I don't think this is really going to take people by surprise. I think people who tune into Lines of Liberty are very smart, critical thinkers, understand how politics works. And I've seen, a lot of talk recently about, on the Democrat side, you're not running against a Kamala Harris, or previously, you're not running against a Joe Biden. You're running against a machine. I believe Dave Smith talked about this a few weeks ago. So it doesn't really matter who the candidate is. It's just the face of the machine. And Democrat voters are, and we saw it with John Fetterman, and John Fetterman's actually gotten a lot better since he's been elected senator in Pennsylvania. But in 2022, when he was running to be the senator, which he did win that election, obviously, he had just had a stroke and he could literally not speak coherent sentences. And it didn't matter because he was the face of the machine for that Pennsylvania Senate seat. So when we talk about the cleaning up the mess that created Biden, mess really isn't the right word, because it's certainly not a mess. It's very orchestrated, planned. Tactically, these people know what they're doing. This is the managerial state, the lifers in Washington, D.C., who control all of the departments, who've been there for their entire careers. That is that's the man behind the curtain. The man or woman in front of the curtain is the Joe Biden, the Kamala Harris, they're not making decisions. And even more so than that, like, the reason Donald Trump is so much of a threat is just because they don't have control over him. And, I think it goes deeper than this when you get into international agreements and who are these bureaucrats, these lifers in Washington, D.C., who are they taking orders from? Who are they getting directions from? And I think there's a lot of international influence there as well. And so why is Donald Trump such a threat to them, such a threat to that international order? It's not because he's some great savior who's going to set us free. It's just because he's a wild card and they can't control him. And I'm not saying anything new. This has been said by many, many other people. But that's the threat. And the shame of it is that I think we can get a little caught up and carried away in the fact that Donald Trump is going after this international order, these bureaucrats, this managerial state in Washington, D.C. that runs things. But he's really not going after it. He's just not controlled by it, which that's a good thing. It's a good thing he's not controlled by it, but just that doesn't make any necessary changes. So it's going to be interesting to watch how this does play out. And in 2020, I think we learned that elections, the democratic process, is still at least kind of real, because Donald Trump did get elected. He did get in there. Of course, his term wasn't great, didn't accomplish a lot of things that he wanted to, got bogged down in Russia, and impeachments and all these different things. So hopefully it'll be better the next time. Hopefully he'll be insulated, have some people around him like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK to actually take some cuts at some of this bureaucracy. That's why I'm voting for Donald Trump, because why would you not take that gamble? Like, what? So you have a chance to vote for someone who is against this international order that is literally destroying your freedom and liberty across the globe. And that's not to say that Donald Trump is like this white knight that's going to come in and do it, but he's just not controlled by them. Why would you not vote for someone who's not controlled by them? That just makes sense. Why would you waste a vote on a Chase Oliver, on whoever else, third-party candidate, or if you're a psychopath, libertarian, freedom person who's voting for Kamala Harris? I don't even know how that even happens, but there's people out there like that. Yeah, so that's why I'm voting for Donald Trump. It's not because I think he's even going to advance liberty per se. It's that he's not controlled by the ones who are dead set on destroying liberty, on censoring you, on shutting you up, on taking your money. Dead set on that. That's out there. The plans are out there. They're out there in the open, and we're going to talk about some of these policies now. But, people who listen to this show, in the last 6 months, last year, you've definitely seen a pivot from me where I'm not invested at all in the Libertarian Party. I know Brian is. I know we have different messages. That's fine. I think that's actually a good thing, that we're giving you different perspectives, because I'm not right about everything. Brian's not right about everything. But I think we are both, confident enough in ourselves and understanding the landscape of politics today that, we are speaking from what we believe. So you as listeners are getting to hear two different perspectives, and you can draw your own conclusion. And I think what we're going to talk about next with Kamala Harris, Brian could do the same show and he would say the same things, I think, here about Kamala Harris's policies. So the difference between Brian and I don't want to put words in his mouth, maybe he can speak to this too. It's not what we believe. I think we're fully aligned on where we are from a philosophical standpoint, but from a tactical standpoint on how we defend the freedoms we have left, I think we're have a difference of opinion there. I think that's pretty clear. But to get into some of Kamala Harris's policies, so she issued them yesterday, Sunday, September 8th. And it's at kamalaharris.com/issues if you want to check it out yourself. I'll link to it on the show notes page as well. And I'm not going to read through all of her stuff. I think I have 4 or 5 different ones I wanted to hit on here. And we're going to start with taxes. And taxes, she did say she wants to expand the child tax credit to provide a $6,000 tax cut to families with newborn children. I will always be in favor of tax cuts for anybody. I don't care how, necessarily centered they are on, like this is just centered on families with newborn children. Now, people will look at this and they'll say, well, why are we just incentivizing parents with kids? Well, I think we should be incentivizing parents to have kids. So I don't have a problem with that. The title of this episode is Incentives Drive the Bus. If we're going to do anything from a tax standpoint to incentivize anything, it should be for people to have more kids, because we need more kids in this country. It's no secret the fertility rate is dropping through the floor. So, of course, I would like to see a $6,000 tax cut across the board. But a tax cut is a tax cut, and less money go into the government and more money being in the pockets of families is a good thing. Full stop. Now the bad on taxes. So she wants to roll back Trump's tax cuts for the wealthiest Americans, enacting a billionaire minimum tax, quadrupling the tax on stock buybacks, and other reforms to ensure the very wealthy are playing by the same rules as the middle class. This is just a ridiculous statement. I'll come back to that. Under her plan, the tax rate on long-term capital gains for those earning $1 million a year or more will be 28%. So just for that last sentence there, so the ones who are doing the most to create jobs and create opportunities, they are going to tax those people more, which then taxes those jobs, reduces those jobs, and reduces those opportunities. It's just stupid. What you incentivize for here, you're going after people who are investing in our country, making money here, creating jobs here. It's going to push those dollars out of the country. And if you're running for president of the United States, why would you want to do that? I mean, they know exactly what they're doing here. But to go back to, so the statement here, ensuring that the very wealthy are playing by the same rules as the middle class. That is so stupid, because the very wealthy just don't play by the same rules as the middle class. The middle class, they're W-2 employees. They're 1099s. They are trading their time for dollars. The wealthy are not. The wealthy own businesses. The wealthy are not paying income taxes. The wealthy are not paying on a W-2. The wealthy are creating jobs. So by the definition of becoming wealthy, you have a different set of rules. That's how you got wealthy. You can't make wealthy people play by the same rules as the ones who aren't taking any risks. It's crazy. Doesn't make any sense. And it's going to make everybody poor. All right. Make rent affordable and home ownership attainable. It's a policy statement right there from her. So the good. And I've said this before. She said she's going to cut red tape to make sure that we build more housing faster. That's good. That's great. I love that. That should be a policy for every politician, right, left, center, libertarian, conservative, liberal, progressive, whatever. Everyone should want to cut red tape so we can build houses faster. They should cut red tape so we can start businesses faster. They should cut red tape so we can travel easier. They should cut red tape everywhere. So I'm never going to argue against anyone who's cutting red tape. That's good. Red tape in the housing sector, cutting it, fantastic. Now the bad. She'll sign legislation to outlaw new forms of price fixing by corporate landlords. First of all, price controls, price fixing in the housing market does more to, and I had a guest on a few weeks ago talking about this, does more to limit the housing supply, does more to create more homeless people than anything else. Fixing the pricing of housing creates scarcity with housing. It also puts incentives in place where developers don't want to build more housing, don't want to build more apartments, more condos, because they're not going to get the return. They're not going to get the return on their investment. And it incentivizes them actually to build more high-end condos because if they're going to invest, they're going to invest in a segment of the market where they're going to actually achieve that return. And they're not going to play in this level where there's price fixing in apartment buildings because it's just not a sound investment. What you incentivize, you get more of. Second point that she had here, she had more points. Second point that I'm talking about, Vice President Harris will provide the first-time homebuyers with a $25,000 assistance, I guess just payment to help with their first down payment. So this is obviously going to push the cost of houses up higher. Almost, I mean, it's not going to be like a exact $25,000 increase across the board because not everyone's a first-time home buyer. But of course, this is going to push the cost higher. If all of a sudden you're giving first-time home buyers $25,000 for a down payment, guess what? The pricing of houses is going to go up. And the pricing of houses goes up. What does that mean? That means the payments are going to go up. So the payments will be higher. The payments are already super high. They've really, if you compare like today buying a house with 4 or 5 years ago, payments for the same house are like double. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. And this is not going to help that in any way whatsoever. No. Interest rates coming down would help somewhat. But that's a whole nother thing. Then the price will go up. So maybe that doesn't help. Anyway, all right, next policy. Growing small business and investing in entrepreneurs. So she has some good things here. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I will highlight the good things. I'm not just gonna crap on Kamala Harris. She has a couple good things. Also mostly bad, but a couple good things. I like this one. She wants to expand the startup expense tax deduction for new businesses from $5,000 to $50,000. So what does this mean? I'm starting a new business, multiple new businesses. So in my real estate business, I buy a course that's whatever, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. That's going to teach me how to invest in the segment of the market that I want to. That course is a startup expense. Paying a tax advisor, paying a lawyer to start up a holding company, to start up a LLC, to start a corporation, whatever. Those expenses are startup expenses. Things like that, that is very good. So that means all those dollars that you're spending to build that business, none of them are going to be taxed. That's fantastic. I have no problem with this. There should be no taxes on startup expenses. There should be, if it's a startup expense, there shouldn't be a tax on it. Throw out this $5,000, $50,000. If you're starting a business, all of your startup expenses should not be taxed. If you want to make it easy for entrepreneurs to start businesses, do that. That should be Donald Trump's rebuttal. Do it. Somebody here, get to Donald Trump and tell him to do that, just to wipe this point away from Kamala Harris. Okay, so a second good thing. She's going to take on everyday obstacles and cut red tape that make it harder to grow a small business. Now, she didn't provide any specifics, but like I said, if you're cutting red tape, I'm going to support you. So hopefully this isn't some backdoor thing where she's actually going to somehow help corporations and make it harder to start businesses. She might do that. But if it says cut red tape, I'm on board. I'd like to see what she plans on doing. Too bad there's no specifics. All right, the bad now. So this is really more of a claim than what she plans to do. So she makes a claim in her policy statement saying that she tripled the Small Business Administration's lending to Black-owned businesses and more than doubled that lending to Latino and women-owned businesses. And, I think it's great that more, there's more Black-owned businesses, there's more Latino, women-owned businesses. I think it's whenever anyone starts a business, I will support you. I think that's fantastic. You're taking initiative on yourself to provide a service, to provide goods. You're taking on risk. You're learning. I think it's phenomenal. I support everyone who's doing it. But what are they doing? They are incentivizing based upon race and based upon gender that certain types of people get more incentives than other types of people. And that's obviously not a good thing. You don't want to have incentives based on skin color and incentives based on gender. It's not fair, and it creates distrust. It creates disunity in the world. As you're favoring one type of person who has a certain color skin and a certain gender over another type of person who has a certain color skin and a certain gender. It's ridiculous, and it divides people. And if the Democrats have this message where they want to unite people, this is the opposite of that. So if I was Trump, I would definitely attack this point here. Because what you incentivize, you get more of. And if you incentivize distrust, disunity, you're going to get more of it. All right. Next one, take on bad actors and bring down costs. This one had nothing good. The bad, so she's going to direct her administration to crack down on anti-competitive practices that let big corporations jack up prices and undermine the competition that allows all businesses to thrive while keeping prices low for consumers. Like how? That doesn't even, like, she's going to crack down on anti-competitive practices. What does that even mean? This is just political jargon that means nothing. How are you going to determine what the price of something should be? How are you going to determine the price of eggs? How are you going to determine the price of lumber? You can't. And she gets into later, so she wants to go after bad actors exploiting during emergency, which is even more dangerous as that market mechanism. So if you have a hurricane come through and, the Home Depot is selling generators and they raise the price of generators. Why are they raising the price of generators? Well, when they're raising the price of generators, because the demand has become, they should be raising the price of generators. They probably don't because they're a stupid corporation that doesn't care about people. But they should be raising the price of generators because it's going to make that good. It's going to make it harder to buy it. So it'll make it more likely that the person purchasing that good is in desperate need of it. So it's going to the people that really need the generator, the people that have the freezer full of food that's going to go rotten, and not go to the person that is buying who already has another generator. So that's why you raise costs, because you want it, you want the market to be able to correct, to go to the people who are willing to overpay knowingly to get that generator. Otherwise, the guy who has a generator at home and just wants a backup gets the backup generator because they keep the cost low. And the one who was there 5 minutes later, who needs to save, all of his meat and frozen goods in his freezer, loses his freezer. That's why you jack up prices during an emergency. And if you come in and you mess with the market, you screw things up. All right, guns, the bad. Guess what? It's all bad. And people will say, oh, Trump's bad too. Trump banned bump stocks. Yes, Trump was bad on guns. Hopefully Trump has learned something. I don't know. We'll find out. I will say this. This is way worse than anything Trump did. She wants to ban assault weapons. She wants to ban high-capacity magazines. She wants to require universal background checks. And she supports expanding red flag laws. Like, that's horrible. Literally everything there is horrible. I don't know how anybody could say they're a libertarian and vote for someone who is going to do that. And assault weapons is a ridiculous term. Let's call it what it is. You want to ban semi-automatic rifles. That's insane. That is insane. And high-capacity magazines. Why? Why do you get to determine if I can have 8 rounds, 12 rounds, 16 rounds in my magazine? You don't know if I'm trying to defend myself and my family against, maybe some Venezuelan gangs that are trying to overtake a neighborhood, and you're going to limit the amount of ammunition I can have in my magazine. It's crazy. The whole thing is crazy. And red flag laws. I mean, red flag laws are, for the most part, targeting people who have mental health issues. So, someone who has a mental health issue, pretty much they're saying, do not have the same rights as someone who does not have a mental health issue. It's crazy. It's a slippery slope. It's very easy to go from something like that to, oh, they posted on Facebook something angry, or they made an angry comment on Twitter. Guess what? No guns for you. Take his guns. That could happen in a year. Easy. Crazy that anybody who claims to be a libertarian would even entertain the idea of voting for someone that tyrannical. And lastly, I just wanted to talk about, she has a policy point on lowering energy and the climate crisis, tackling the climate crisis. It's all bad. She talks about lowering energy costs, provides no actual way to do it, just a lot of political gobbledygook about climate change and climate accords, and I don't even know. She's in the past come out against fracking, which is a way to really reduce the cost of energy. She has zero mention of nuclear power, nuclear energy, which is absolutely ridiculous. I think most people don't understand the crisis in this country right now when it comes to electricity, when it comes to power generation. The amount of power that is being consumed, demanded by these data centers that are being built everywhere for all this AI computing and cloud storage. It is a tremendous power suck. Put on top of that, this increase in the amount of electrical vehicles, incentivizing more electrical vehicles, and the grid just can't support it. So if you're going to have an energy plan and not mention nuclear power, that's a non-starter. You cannot be president of the United States if you are not going to even mention nuclear power as a way to reduce energy costs. I mean, like I've said previously on this show, I've worked in the energy sector for a long time, for years and years, before leaving 2 months ago, or a month ago, whatever that was. I've worked in for 2 different nuclear power engineering companies. I know what they're talking about in these business development departments. I know what these utilities are talking about, what they're up against with the lack of base load. It is scary stuff. It is stuff that within the next 5 years, you could have a hot summer week where you're just out of luck, just letting your power on just during the lowest demand times. And when it's hot in the middle of the day, you'll have no air conditioning. Your refrigerator will be off. We are not far from this, like at all. And this isn't just like a California, Arizona thing. This could happen anywhere in this country. And heaven forbid, if you live in a place and you have electric heat and you're relying upon that. Yeah, I mean, crazy, man. Crazy times that we live in. So that's Kamala Harris's policies. I know the debate is coming up tomorrow. I'm sure Brian will be talking about that on his Wednesday show. So be sure to subscribe to the Lions of Liberty Network to make sure that you get Brian's reaction to the debate. It's going to be massive. It's going to be huge. I mean, my predictions going in, I think it's a huge win for Trump that the mics are off. I think looking at that first, the Biden debate, the Biden-Trump debate, this one in this past year, one of the reasons Trump came off so well is because Biden was just able to just talk without Trump interrupting him, and he just hung himself essentially. Had all the rope there, and he just didn't have what it took. And the same thing could happen with Kamala Harris. Now, I will caveat that by saying, and I said this, I think it was my last solo show I did like 2 or more months ago, where this is before Kamala was on the ticket and Biden had dropped out. And I said, be careful what you wish for. Kamala will be a stronger, or likely, I think I said likely will be a stronger candidate than Biden. She isn't stupid. She is able to memorize. She's a prosecutor. She's able to memorize things. She's able to get her talking points down. She's able to give a speech. Sure, she's not like a talented, she's not like talented like Obama in that way where she can give speeches and wow people. But she'll be able to hold her own to a certain degree with Trump. But if Trump can just knock her off kilter, if Trump can dish out some Tulsi Gabbard type debate tactics, where really knocking her back on her heels by just citing her record of how anti-freedom it is, of how she went out of her way to keep prisoners locked up longer for free labor, how she went out of her way to keep someone locked up when there was information that should have set them free, how she put parents in prison or prosecuted parents for their kids, for truancy, for their kids being late for school, and laughed about it. And this is coming from the same lady that, laughed about smoking marijuana after locking up people for smoking marijuana. She's not a good person. And if Trump is able to highlight that in a way, while just kind of doing pretty much the same thing he did during the Biden debate, which is not getting too much in Kamala's face, because Kamala will be able to play that off as being attacked, and she's a woman and Trump hates women. And I don't expect Trump to pick up any, new female votes through this debate, but he needs to maintain what he has, really. I think that's how Trump ultimately wins, but we will see. So we got Sean here on Twitter. What is this? Expand red flag laws to voting. I like that. Yeah, I mean, democracy is it's going to fail. Just a matter of time. I'm just hoping that we can kind of delay that failure as long as possible. So maybe we can get another system, another way to coexist up and running before this whole thing comes crashing down. But we have idiots voting, look around, go to an airport, go to an amusement park, go anywhere. You're surrounded by morons, and they're voting too. So it's only a matter of time till this whole thing comes flying apart at the seams. But I'm not black-pilled. I'm white-pilled because there's a lot of great people out there. And, I think more than ever, leaders, people who understand what's at stake, are stepping up, are stepping forward. When you have RFK, when you have Tulsi Gabbard coming behind Trump, I think that helps. Hopefully, get enough people around him. Like I talked about with Jeremy Kauffman. Trump himself, he's a populist. He doesn't have principles, doesn't have philosophy. He's just, just trying to do really what makes him look best. And if you can surround him with people like Vivek Ramaswamy as well, who can convince him, show him how he can look good, and also maybe expand freedom, help the country, that would be a win-win. We have a chance of that with Trump. No chance of that with Kamala Harris. No chance with Kamala Harris. We have a chance with Trump. I think it's easy to see who to vote for. All right, with that being said, I will leave you all for today. Next week, actually on Thursday, I believe, I'll be recording a show with, it's either Wednesday or Thursday, with Ryan Krim. We're going to be talking about healthcare. Ryan's a doctor. He's been he's been a doctor for many years, for decades. We're talking about medical ethics. We're going to be talking about why doctors are spending so little time with patients, even the more and more advanced that technology gets, that patient-doctor relationship gets worse and worse over time. As you would think with productivity and tools and AI and computer software is coming into play, you would think it would make sense that there should be a better relationship, more time between a doctor and patient, but that's getting worse and worse. We're going to dig into all of that, and then it'll air next Monday on the podcast platform. So until then, always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.